Update the. You are here for the then.
Yes.
Never hurts.
I'm addicted to knowledge. I don't. I love it.
That's great. I know.
Is it working?
It is.
Yeah.
Just hiding all the annoying controls. Okay, then show me on here how you like it to work.
What do you mean?
Like your presentation, or is this how it looks?
That's how it looks.
Okay, just making sure.
I think.
I didn't mess up anything.
Yeah, it is fine.
You don't have any notes usually over here?
Yeah.
Cool.
I
Okay.
started doing mine like they do the Keller Williams stuff so that it's the same every time.
I love that.
So I've
Okay,
got my
train the
binder.
trainer. Mm-hmm.
Unlike some people I know that go to Dayton and then just decide not to do anything with that. Everybody else in this room or
No.
anything.
I'm down though. You guys just let me know.
Yep, in September, I'm doing the 6 personal perspectives.
Right, yep. You excited?
Not yet.
No. You'll get there.
But it's just
It's prep.
I gotta finish my relo test to get that out of the way and
Oh, nice. I didn't know you were doing that.
yeah,
Cool.
I gotta finish that up.
Okay.
It's gonna do it this month. I'm like, I need another couple weeks, so I'm gonna schedule for mid-July.
Good for you.
Ooh. Got busy this month with some weird stuff. So.
You're getting accredited.
Yep. And I gotta get my Indiana license because Kristen now knows I'm getting it, so she's like, you better get that. I got referrals for you.
We need some more of those.
I already paid for it. I just haven't finished it.
90 hours. There's no reciprocity.
In Kentucky too, or just Ohio? Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know anyone that's in Indiana.
There's a couple, but I mean, there's nobody that can hear me, but none that I would refer to. Them don't know well enough to refer them,
Right.
they're not doing much business, that type of thing. I'm like, if I refer to an agent, I prefer them to be an active agent.
Right.
So. That's actually, we're all in Oblivion eventually, so I figured good for that too, so.
Yeah.
Get the acre and stuff I want.
Are you pretty familiar with Indiana already?
Generally, not great, but.
Yeah, I thought about getting Kentucky. Indiana would be better, but I don't know it as well. Like,
Not gonna learn it until you do it. I
That's
mean,
true.
I thought I knew Cincinnati, so I got my license. Like, we bought us Cincinnati, I had no idea. There, I'll learn it. Nothing else I've learned enough to know when I don't know. So,
Yeah, I'm the person that's like not afraid to not do something. It's like, yeah.
I think most people that know me, like if I'm working with someone, they're gonna know enough that, like, if I like not sure about something or whatever, they're not gonna be like freaked out if I tell them like, hey, I don't understand, or I'm not sure about this or whatever. They're not gonna like hold it against me.
It's also about like how to deliver that. Like if you look terrified of the question that you don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
it's
You're like, yeah, because she's just like, that's a great question. Let me see if I can figure that out. Like that's more than, oh my God, I have no idea. Okay, make sure the clicker works before I need to buy one for myself. 'Cause I hate borrowing it because like the one time it wouldn't be compatible for some reason. They're expensive. I just haven't thought about it. Yeah. Get Amazon like $20. You know, hard to find for anything. But haven't done it yet. Our purchase contract is 14 pages.
So you're just doing addendums for the purchase agreement?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Change the name, it's wrong on the handouts, I forgot to update the handout package, but, updated the name a little bit, cause it's, I'm working on getting it accredited for CE, so it will be soon, it just isn't yet.
So how long is the, this teaching gonna take, like about an hour?
2 hours.
Is this like a CE class or something?
Not yet.
Um,
But if you are writing purchase contract and you don't know the addendums, you need to, because if this is a way you could really mess up a contract for your client, so.
okay.
Yeah, you need to leave, I understand it's not CE, you're free to leave when you want to, but, I think you'll enjoy it more than what you realize.
Oh, thank you. What's your name?
Jennifer,
Hi,
Baldwin.
Michelle. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Okay, I'm gonna get started soon. Don't keep you guys here all day. I'm gonna be slightly under the two, but I wouldn't count it, depends on how many questions. Oh. I remember who they ended up getting sponsored, so.
No ladies.
That's the preparation, you bring them on.
This is.
Yes.
You get a lot of it.
Yeah.
Well, we don't. No. And the town company did that and sent the butter. And then everything, and it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
and then we had to, you know.
yeah, and that's. Very big company. Yeah, touch on that today too. Yeah.
You can that quick, I tell you.
I know, it's fun.
You guys, how do you guys do, knowing that you want a basic addendum so that the underwriters can say, I want to test up the sellers too. Does that make sense? Or the buyers, like, you know.
The lender would never see a defect.
Good. Yeah, yeah, no, but sometimes.
Sometimes a price change that will go up separate and. You will have to.
So you're teaching them, do they, do they defect, keep them, and we. That's cool. Yeah.
They want me to, they talk. But, let's see, I'm not, I first started to teach this as a 1 hour class. So, I'm trying to, well, I've had that 8 or 8 hours with them. So the means I realize it's not where I can get it. So, to me, it is, but it's not as applicable for, everything. Yeah, not as commonly, so I don't wanna try to use the most common ones that affect more transactions.
I mean, I think they're trying to do more than that right now with the whole. I know everybody. First one's expensive. And I know everybody's trying to sell their house for, you know, like.
What I'm also trying to clear up is like, when are they actually required? And
Yeah.
That's when I've not gotten enough information that I'm comfortable making a recommendation. That's usually the biggest question, like, is it 2 weeks, is it 3 weeks,
Yeah.
is it 10 days, like, what do we need to actually have one in place? In my opinion, if you wanna cover your butt, is anything. If you're not, vacating at closing, you should probably have one, covers both sides. About one other person said she was, the girl who just walked through, didn't you say she was staying? I don't know who it was.
I don't know who it was either.
One person said they were coming in. I don't want her to miss the beginning if she did.
Yeah, I remember who it was, but I don't know if she said that. I don't know. Those are great.
I'll give her a minute. We had to spray it today.
It's like nobody knows about it.
I get them by the gallon.
There's so fresh, you know, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
sweet tea, but it's not too sweet.
Yeah, there's. Like, I usually make sweet tea myself, but then like, once I discovered that, don't need to anymore. It's too much.
I do like tea, but I don't like making it myself.
Yeah,
so.
it's, so
I don't like sweet tea. I like it unsweet.
Really?
It's good tea. I like it unsweet.
They have,
Maybe
that-
with
they
like
sell
a
that.
packet of sweetener in it, but.
I'll put like
But
a
you
dash of
shouldn't even-
lemonade in it, which is,
Okay.
love it.
I just like it so fresh and not too much sugar.
Yeah, it's so good.
What's your name again?
Carla,
Michelle.
nice to probably meet you again, I'm sure.
Right, right.
I don't think everybody talk out there, but. Amazing how much of that trail is. So I think it's funny how nobody wants to sit in the middle of the room.
I like to be close.
But it's because I think it does help that the TVs are on both sides, so I think that's probably a good portion of the reason. Well, whether or not anybody else is coming, we're gonna go ahead and get started, 'cause at least you guys attempted to be here as close to on time. So I did talk to them, like, we need to be careful, we're not doing back-to-back classes, because it's not fair to anybody to be running late, because this does run as a 2-hour class, and I don't want you guys to be here any later than you need to, so I will try to keep it as short as I can. But we tried to do it in an hour last time and we ended up right about 2 hours, so I don't know that I can shorten it much. So we will do the best we can. If you do need to leave, this is not CE, so you are welcome to leave if you decide you need to, so I do understand. It is on, at the state level to be CE.
Yeah,
So it should be on August 6th. I am scheduled to teach it at the board as CE as long as it gets the certification, so. Yeah, because I am certified by the state to teach CE as well. And I will bring it back here, see, we were hoping it was done by today, but it didn't happen.
gotcha.
So we tried. So I will be starting to teach CE here, it's just I have to become a CE provider in order to do
Right.
that, because right now Seven Hills is not.
How do you do that? Like, where do you?
It's an application to the state.
Oh, okay.
If anybody's ever interested in it, please reach out to me, I'd be happy to walk you through it.
Too.
No,
Oh, no, just the
yeah,
instructor.
the instructor does, so. Yeah, but I teach at the board, I taught ethics last week, and then I'll be teaching this one, so I'll be continuing to teach at the board, so I am the, well, I guess we'll go to that. I'm the chair of the Professional Development Committee at RADC Professional Development Committee for this year. I've sat on it for a couple of years now, so education's a big thing to me. I was a former office manager, loved it. My favorite part wasn't really coaching so much as it was teaching. Not a bad coach, but I enjoyed the teaching more so than the day-to-day coaching.
Oh, yeah, 'cause that's
So-
more like herding cats, yeah.
Yeah. And I love agents, but there are sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, really? I taught this how many times? My name is Jennifer Baldwin. I am actually with the Chabris Group, so I am part of Seven Hills, but I am on Peter's team, so you don't see me here as often, but I am on the education committee here too, so. And I was just asked if I was interested in being part of the, is it ACL or ALC?
Yeah.
ACL, so Kristen's trying to talk me into that. We'll see if that happens.
But are
For
you,
next
you're a realtor too, right? You're out.
Yes,
you're out and
I've
about.
been licensed since 2008,
Okay.
so I do sell houses too, in between everything else I like to do. Favorite hobby in the world is my horses. I've got that horse and I've also got a miniature horse that, technically my husband pulls a cart.
I wanna
So
talk
if you ever want to see it, check out my Facebook page, it's all over there, so. I compete in dressage and he drives a cart around, so.
Oh, my God, you do the one thing I have not done, dressage, wow.
It's the basis of every riding, and I will swear that up and down to anybody that's ever
Yeah.
ridden the horse. Yeah. So, that's my girl, 25 years old, as June 4th, so,
Wow.
all right. So now we'll get into the fun stuff. So I am working towards becoming KW faculty as well, so you'll see me try to teach this from a book, which is how KW faculty likes to do it, but it's still offered, so please forgive me. I'm at that age where I now need reading glasses, but I can't see you if my reading glasses are on, so.
Mhm. I've been there a long time.
All right, so every form we use today are on RAGC's website. That is a QR code to get to it. It is also on your member portal. There's a little button on the top that says contracts and forms. So anytime if you can't find it in .loop, I helped someone out with this recently that was looking for something on our group chat. It may be on the contracts and forms on RAGC's website. So this is where I pulled all of these from because every brokerage and little the division can be different. So I wanted to pull it from a general site, not just from our dot loop or what TCG uses or what Seven Hills uses. I wanted to keep it very general. And like I said, most digital signing companies will provide their, will upload those into their software. If it's not there, you know where to go look. And I already said brokerages and teams may use their own. We're gonna jump right into it, and we're gonna start with the most basic addendum. This is your addendum. This is your basic addendum that can cover a bunch of different things. This is used basically anytime another addendum is not going to cover it. Please do not use this for something else if there is an addendum for. This is not a repair request. This is not for appraisal gap. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. This is not, there's a lot of things this is not, but this is for basic things. So if there's something like an agreement to change the sale price, an agreement to extend closing, that type of thing. This is something that can be used for that. So each one of these, we're gonna kind of go through what needs to be on the addendum. And when you're gonna use it, so. On this one, you're gonna make sure, and on pretty much all of them, you're gonna see, you're gonna wanna make sure you've got the contract date, buyer and seller name. If you're writing a purchase contract, you may not know what the other side's name is, but if this is something after you're under contract, you should have that information. And make sure you're putting the full property address. If it's a very common property address, I would also include a parcel number. So if you're on 123 Main Street, please include the parcel number too. It's always better to be more clear than less clear. You are going to put in the bottom down there, you're gonna have information on what are you changing? What are you adding on to the purchase contract? Like I said, clear but concise. You're not a lawyer, do not try to use legal jargon to write this. You're adjusting the price. Price is changed to this amount. It doesn't have to be some long explanation on what you did. Or buyer and seller agreed to change the price to this. Very simple. If you ever get caught and aren't real sure, guess what? RHEC also provides board approved clauses for contracts. So you can check out their website and see if they what clauses they have provided. And if that's one of those things, if you're not sure, please ask somebody else. Do not try to put in some long addendum changing multiple parts of the contract. That is practicing law. We are not lawyers.
Keep that one more time. You said so that how do you pronounce that without saying RAGS like rags?
Rexy.
Ragsy. You said that you could go on their site to find some attorney verbiage.
Some clauses, the QR code will take you there.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Or just Google it, or when you get on their website, just search for contract clauses. I think it's on that contract and forms page as well, but I won't swear to it. I have to look again to verify exactly where I pulled it from. So it does give you some ideas, and it may just give you some verbiage to use as well, even if it doesn't directly apply to what you're using. So,
Helpful.
but as I say, be sure you understand you're not an attorney. We don't want to get you in trouble. All right. So reminder, when you're writing your initial purchase contract, if you're writing an addendum to the contract at that time, on page 8, there is an area where you need to note that there was an addendum to the purchase contract.
I feel like a lot of people don't know that.
They don't. It is also a place where you can write very simple changes to the contract as
Right.
well. And that is okay. You're allowed to do that. You don't have to do a full addendum for
Right.
very minor things. But make sure you are noting on there, if there is something, you're gonna be one of the many addendums we go over today. There's an appraisal gap, there's an escalation addendum, stuff like that. Note it on the contract as well, because you need to refer to it, so we know that there's more than one thing on there. Any questions on the addendum? The first one's easy, isn't it? Probably the most commonly used one. There's quite a few reasons to use one of those, so. If you need to use it, make sure you're using it.
I think people get confused on when to use one, when not to use one, what to squeeze onto a contract. What not to put on a contract, put it on an addendum. I
My
think
piece
that's-
of advice would be, if
Yeah.
there is not a blank line on a
Okay.
contract to write what you wanna write, it should go onto an addendum.
So if there's no space for the specific thing you want to do, it needs to go on an addendum.
Yeah.
That's good advice, okay.
Because you don't wanna switch stuff in, you don't wanna make it illegible, cause our contract should be clear and concise, so if you're not sure that it would fit, put it onto an addendum.
Got it. Good to know.
And even if it's like you're crossing something out to change something, you could cross it out and put C addendum number 1.
Mhm.
Then you're referring to an addendum you've attached to it. Oh yeah, so that is one thing I forgot. On the top, if there's more than one addendum, they're gonna be numbered, so make sure if you're, even if it's your first addendum, put number 1 on there.
Okay.
Cause if you end up doing another addendum, you need to do it as number 2, just so, cause sometimes there does end up being more than one. So, sorry, I forgot to point that part out. All right, any other questions on this? I just realized I'm missing a page in my book. It's probably randomly stuck somewhere else. So I gotta figure out where page 6
Or the
went.
horse ate it.
Maybe. Actually, I printed it last night before I left the office, and then this morning it was still sitting there, so maybe I dropped it somewhere between here and there. Who knows? All right, escalation addendum. This one's fun, and this is one we will be doing some math, so keep a scrap piece of paper out. We're gonna show you how to escalate a contract, because this is probably. When you see a lot of agents that will put no escalation addendums, it's usually because their lack of comfort with understanding how to escalate a contract.
I'm just here.
I know, a lot of people
Oh,
don't mess with it, but
all the
it's
time.
a very good tool, and you should be able, if you can accept it, a lot of people will, because it's not actually agreeing to a certain price. They feel like they're like in a. They just feel like they're having more fun with it, they're bidding, they're having fun with this, and
Well,
people
you're
will
working
pay
for it.
higher because
Yeah.
they're not committing to that price up front. So if you're not comfortable with it, we're gonna run through it. So things that are on here, or that you need to make sure you're gonna include are the escalation amount, your cap, your net offer, and we're gonna go through how to calculate that. You guys ready for this?
Mhm.
This is probably the most complicated one, so that's why it's up front. All right. So paragraph 1, we are going to look at, it says that the event the seller receives another written bona fide offer. I love they throw fancy terms in there. Bona fide just means it's genuine or real. Meaning that it's signed, they have it in hand. It's not someone saying, hey, I'm submitting an offer. So it has to be a real offer. If they do submit one. Prior to them accepting your offer, so if they've already accepted your offer, if the escalation won't come into play. And it has to exceed your net offer under this contract. Okay? All that makes sense so far? So then you're gonna say, if that happens, my buyer agrees to the first part here where I've got the red number to pay this amount, the escalation amount over that person's net offer. They agree to pay this amount over their net offer, so.
We're working on $1 million deal right now.
Oh, yeah,
You went straight to Indian Hill.
why not?
Why not?
We're gonna play hard, right?
That's right. Go big or go home.
And there's a lot of theories on how to do this. Most people will put an even number in there. $1,000, $1,500, $2,500. Add a 1 to the end. You know, just little numbers can make a difference. Play with the numbers a little bit.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And you'll see why as we start going through this. All right, it says that in the event there are multiple ones. Each one will have to be, we'll show you how to do it when there's multiple offers on how each one will push one another up. Until you get to.
Really.
Yeah, so we will go through it. It's a very basic one, but it should give you an idea of where to start. And just, it's all math. I love math. I know many people hate it. I love it. And then you are still gonna have a cap as well. So you're gonna set a cap. So your person's gonna say, I will pay this amount, and then it will stop here. Now, if you get really creative with that bottom number, make sure you give yourself some leeway with that cap as well. So if you're gonna say, I'm gonna go $1,001, and then you cap it at 150,000
Yeah,
even.
you gotta match.
You gotta make sure you've got some leeway with that cap as well. So otherwise, you're still gonna cap yourself. And not give yourself any, so maybe 150,000 and $50 or something like that. You gotta play with it a little bit, okay? All right, so we went through some of the terms. Get into another one. So net offer calculation, this was just updated recently. It was actually funny. It was updated on the day I taught this class for the first time, which was kind of funny, or the day before. I can't remember. It was one of the two. This is what is included in your net offer calculation. So when you're looking at, I thought I was missing another page. It just stuck together. I'm like, how did I do that? So net offer is going to be the purchase price for the real estate minus any seller paid contributions, which include, but not limited to, your buyer brokerage fee. That was added on. So if they're paying a commission, that is part of a seller paid contribution. Settlement charges, home warranty, and title insurance. Those are your big ones, but it could be anything else that the seller is paying for. You wanna unpack it? There you go. You're welcome. So that was the change that was on there, was adding in the buyer brokerage fee. And it was funny because before that, on the slide, it actually said, is buyer brokerage fee, should that be calculated in? And I had to take that part of the slide out because they answered it for me. All right, so here's gonna be our first one. Got two offers here. Offer A, 475,000. Seller's paying 5,000 in closing costs. No home warranty. Title insurance is being paid by the buyer. Buyer agent compensation is also being paid by the buyer. So I want you to come up with the net offer on both of these. Offer B is 485,000. Seller paid closing costs or none. Home warranty being paid by just to be clear, being paid by the seller of $700. Title insurance paid by the seller is $300. And buyer agent compensation paid by the seller is $15,000. Make a note to myself, I forgot to add that on, that those are all seller paid. But those are all seller paid. So when you guys get through that, let me know when you have figured out what the net offer on both of those are. Like, I got it in my head, I don't need to figure it out. If anybody wants to volunteer as they come through it, let me know.
B 469.
B is 469, that is correct. What is A? Anybody? 470, good job. So initial offer was $10,000 lower for A, but it netted out $1,000 higher. So that does come into play because escalation clause would not come into effect if there was not a net higher offer. So if the escalation clause was just on offer A, it would not get escalated because offer B did not net higher than offer A. That makes sense. So if there's an escalation clause on offer B, it would escalate because offer A is higher, but not if it was the other way around.
Okay, to go through offer B,
How to calculate it?
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
because it's 485,000. We're gonna add the two together. There's 700 in a home warranty, 300 in a title insurance, so that's $1,000 off of that. So that's $484,000 now for the offer. And then 15,000 that the seller is paying for closing costs, that takes it down to 469,000 for a net offer. So even though, look at that at first, you think 485 looks great, but they're asking for the seller to contribute more money. Everyone got that? Did you come to the same conclusion? You hadn't worked through it yet? It's interesting when you do that. It's something that doesn't always matter, the number up front. Sometimes it's everything else they're asking for that can make a big difference. All right, so now we're gonna get into escalating them. So a little bit more complicated on this. All right. So this kind of runs through an example of how to escalate it. And you can welcome to read through that. But the basic idea and the way I've always looked at it is you have an offer that reaches a certain amount. You've got $100,000 here, 100,000 here, 100 here. Each one has to push one another up. When one reaches its cap, it is no longer pushing that other offer up. So if they both reach a cap, one reaches a cap, one still has escalation left, it's gonna escalate one more time above the one that already capped.
For that amount.
Whatever their escalation amount is. Yeah, as long as that doesn't reach its cap as well. That's the most basic way in my head I've thought of it. So we're gonna try this and just kind of see what kind of issues we run into as we try to escalate these. Okay? Sometimes I think until you try to do it, it's harder to figure out. So we've got three offers here. Buyer A, the net offer is $100,000, escalates $1,000 up to $150,000. Buyer B has a net offer of $100,000. It escalates $1,000 up to $145,000. Offer C also has a net of $100,000. It escalates $1,000 up to $140,000. So escalate each of these until they cap and tell me what the top escalation is. What the winning offer of these three offers would be.
That's a question.
Yes.
So how often are these increasing? Like once they, like how, is there something that triggers the increase to the net or of the net to the cap? Like what causes
It
that?
can't reach the cap unless another one is gonna push it to that cap.
Okay, so it's depending on the other offers and when they decide to increase.
Yes.
Okay.
One 46. Buyer A will get it at 146.
That is correct.
Because they wouldn't want to go to 150 if they've already maximized everyone else's tax.
I think she's still working on it, so I'm gonna let her continue working on it and see if she comes to the same one. That is correct though. But I wanna, we'll walk through how you got there in a second, but I see her still figuring it out, so. What, did you come up with an answer? It wouldn't be, but let me show you why. Okay, and it's like this, until you go through these, it is a little bit complicated. When, we got into this, I don't know, how many of you have been licensing more than like 5 years? Just a couple. When it went through COVID with all that craziness, the board actually put out classes on how to do this. So it's not like people just naturally knew how to do this. So don't feel bad if you don't know how to, because we got in situations where we had 12, 15 offers, multiple escalation clauses, gaps, appraisal gap, and then all kinds of stuff going on. So the board did give us classes on how to do this. That's one of the reasons that I'm very familiar with this, is I lived through that. I survived that time. It was very interesting. All right. So buyer C will cap at 140,000. And the reason I know that is that it's gonna move up because the buyer B has a higher cap than buyer C.
So it's gonna max.
So it's gonna max out at its 140,000 cap. Make sense? All right. Buyer B is gonna go all the way up to the 145,000 cap because buyer A still has a cap higher than buyer B. But buyer C and buyer B are now capped out. So buyer A only has to escalate one more time up to 146,000.
Do they have to increase by 1,000 each time or is it?
Yes, that's their jump is 1,000. So
It increases by whatever.
their escalation amount was already a set too.
Does
Does that make sense? Now, so what's your name?
Gabriel.
Gabriel? Does that make sense, Gabriel? Okay. So once you kind of see it laid out, it makes more sense. Yeah, it's first time you look at it, you're going, what in the world is going on here? I did lay it out one other way, because some people are more picture oriented. So I laid it out this way too. So,
Or you just each step,
yeah,
that's kind of cool.
so because that was another way that I pulled back up the class I took, and this was another way. It was actually Ann Uckman that laid it out that did the class that I took. So obviously I skipped some numbers in the middle there, but that is the basic idea, is that it's this one cap here, this one increased until it got to 145, this one took over, got to 147. So it kind of, to me, it's a visual that kind of laid it out in a little different way.
So whoever has the highest cap, which you're not gonna know, it wins.
Usually, yeah, it's gonna be whoever's willing to, as long as.
Yeah, what I don't understand is, I don't understand why it's, and I know it's the seller's choice. And I won't mention any names as to what one particular realtor I'm referring to, but.
You may not disparage other realtors.
And she's,
I teach ethics too, so be
Yes.
careful.
but it's like, every deal. And they're all, typically over $1 million. No escalation clause. So somehow
And that's something we've got to be very careful. What
Every
is
client-
it really our seller's choice if we're telling them not to do it?
Well, that's the point I'm making. It is not.
Yeah.
And it's an ethical thing, but it's there. It's plain as day, and you just wonder how it's plain as
Then
day.
again, when we advise our clients
And you
to,
look
are
at
we advising our
everything.
clients to put a sign in the yard? Are we advising our clients to allow open houses? Are we advising our clients to allow showings during certain times? It's like, at what point are we advising, at what point are we pushing them to do something? So it's,
Right.
that is, and it comes down to is, does she truly believe that that is in the best interest of her clients, and that's why she's advising them in that way? I'm playing devil's advocate here. I do actually agree with you. I don't think it's right, but it is something.
Right, some agents believe that that the highest and the best is better, but I tend to think that the only reason you would do that literally consistently is because you don't wanna deal with it,
It could be.
you know?
Now, if you ever get in a situation where you're like, I am really confused, I'm not sure I'm doing this right, I've got deadlines to meet,
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure, I think I've got the right one. But I can't guarantee it.
Right,
Instead of actually honoring the escalation clause, you are welcome to counter at the price rather than using the escalation clause. It is a counter offer rather than just accepting the escalation clause. That makes sense. So if I'm like, this is really complicated, I'm not 100% positive, my brain is tired, I'm not sure I mathed this right. I think that's, the buyer A has the best offer.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna counter them at 150,000, and I'm gonna just see if they'll go ahead and just take their maximum escalation instead of me having to do the escalation clause. You're not telling them that you escalated to that amount, but you could
Right.
counter at that
Oh,
instead.
now I got it,
You're welcome to do that, and people will do that.
Why-
Or you could escalate, or you could just counter at the 146,000 instead.
right,
And say, this is what we came to, but we're counting. And just in case there's some worry that you did something wrong,
mm-hmm,
you could do that.
mm-hmm.
It's an option. Take it as you will.
Quick question.
Yeah.
The thing that was confusing to me,
Yeah.
or wasn't doing right, is starting out with the right number. I'm pretty sure I did it wrong, that I
Okay.
probably started out with just the contract number at the top. But, just looking at this, I didn't know that I need to start at the net amount, take the
Yes.
purchase price and deduct these other things, so.
As it started at every net amount.
Now, another quick question.
But a smart agent is not gonna have any deductions. That's the thing. A net offer should be the purchase contract or the purchase price. A good agent, a smart agent is not gonna, if you're in a point where you're using escalation clauses and you're in a multi-offer situation, are you gonna be asking for buyer's compensation?
Right,
Are you
no.
gonna be asking for
No.
closing costs? In
It's
general,
plain.
probably not.
It needs to be plain.
Maybe buyer's compensation if you've talked to the agent and they're already offering it to everybody, maybe, but. If you're in a very competitive market, this is something you should be thinking about,
You're
their net
basically
offer
a
may
no
not be an
inspection.
issue. If you are in a very competitive market. I actually kind of laugh when I get these contracts, like you would have won, but you asked for title insurance.
Mm-hmm,
Cause now I had to calculate title insurance.
Yeah.
Like, it just,
Sometimes it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
It's what you're saying.
yeah, you just, you put it, you ask for closing costs, but you've got a 20% down loan. Like, sometimes I fault the agent
It's
for not
kinda
really
like-
understanding what they're asking for.
It's kinda
I've had
like-
cash offers asking for closing costs. Like, somebody forget to zero that out when they write the offer, like, it's silly sometimes, some things you see. So, but,
Like when you have, okay, you have cap numbers, do you always start out with like, 1,000 here? Or, like,
no, that
is
all
it-
depends on, remember when we're back here, let me go back to the one before. Go in there. This is what's already on the escalation addenda. So we have to go back to what they put on here. That's the escalation amount. So that was the $1,000 was the escalation amount. The cap was what they filled in there. So whatever they put in there is what the escalation and the cap is.
And I have found just by experience, don't pick an even number or something that like every other realtor picks.
Yeah, Because it'll end up being, you'll be tied.
If you go, like she said, if you just go really weird, like, 1,000, I have a number actually that I use all the time and it usually always wins. It's like $1,637. I kid you not. And it's like, because you will beat out any offer that did 1,500, think about it.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna take the time to do it, get creative, like
Yeah.
you said.
Point. I never would have thought about that.
Yeah,
honestly.
you
Yeah.
gotta get creative, you gotta get outside the box to win.
Or just like when you bid on something and you go $1,000 over 100, it comes to, I always say 150,000, you do 150,200, 150,000 or 151,000.
Right.
Just little differences can make a difference because people do tend to stop at familiar numbers.
Yeah,
So it does make a difference.
You either like the round numbers. Some
Yeah.
people are just like that, that's how I.
Yeah,
No.
Same here.
And when you're doing escalation.
but wouldn't it break your heart a little bit if you saw that house sold for $1,000 over your round number? That's
Changed my OCD.
yeah,
Yeah, it's over $100.
yeah. So it's just stuff to
When you
keep in
start buying your own investment properties like I do, that's when you get really smart about it.
mind. Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
now you start seeing those little numbers make a big difference.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
appreciate it.
Yeah. It's like, it'll take practice to get to it, but this is something you'll see it a few times. Next time you look at one, you might be a little bit more comfortable. And that's the goal of this. It's not to perfect it, it's to get
Every
comfortable.
agent take this class, everybody, I don't care how long they've been in the business.
There's a reason I'm teaching it.
That's right.
Like it's,
No, everybody.
I need to know this better too, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm teaching.
And they
it,
always
so.
say you learn more when you teach.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made, from the 2 times I've taught this, I've made updates to the class where people have suggested to add things on to individual slides or different things, so. Appraisal gap, not something we're seeing quite as often, but I do think it's not gonna go away completely, especially in our highly competitive market, so we were gonna.
It's not
I wanna go through the proper way to do it, because I swear to you, if I see it on a purchase contract, that agent has no flipping idea what they're doing because it's not enforceable. And I am not accepting it, I don't care what they say.
So if it's literally just part of.
Look
the
how long this
contract,
addendum
like we
is.
Talked about, or forget about it.
If someone puts it on the contract, I'm sending this addendum and telling them to fill it out. If they're serious, they need to fill out the whole
Got it.
thing. There's several things on here. This addendum is used by the parties to identify their respective rights and obligations in the event that the appraised value is less than the purchase price. So it says this several times for a reason. So general terms that we use in here, appraised value, we all know what appraised value is. Appraisal gap is the difference between the purchase price and the appraised value. Buyer's appraisal gap payment is the amount of money that the buyer is willing to pay toward the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price. So 3 very important terms there. So on here, we need to make sure we've got all the viable information.
So this is designed specifically for a buyer. For the
Yes.
most part.
Yes. And again, at the bottom, it says the appraisal gap addendum modifies the rights and responsibilities of the parties in the event that the appraised value is less than the purchase price. So it overrides that part of the purchase contract that talks about what happens when the appraisal comes in. Okay.
Over it supersedes.
Yep.
Is there
All right.
Language that supersedes the one at the very bottom.
Yeah, it reinforces that language several times throughout this, so. That's why I say just pay attention because it definitely says it several times for a reason. Alright, this is the part that does not happen when people just write a little blurb on here, financial commitment. You're still over here, okay, trying to make sure I'm not like keeping my back to you the whole time. Buyer agrees to pay a certain amount up to so many dollars, so how many dollars are they willing to pay towards the appraisal gap? You're right, I said written out numbers means actually write out the words, and then they also want the printed numbers as well. And next part it says, you're going to provide evidence of financial ability. This part, you need a written verification from the buyer's lender, unless it's cash, then you need proof of funds. That shall confirm that the buyer has available funds to purchase the real estate and that the buyer has additional funds sufficient for the buyer's appraisal gap payment and to meet the buyer's lender's other down payment pre-qualification and reserve requirements. So that means that lender has to issue an additional pre-approval letter that states they can do an appraisal gap.
And it has to be separate.
Yes, Any lender worth their salt knows what this means, and they will write it out correctly. Jennifer Shield, when she was in here, knew exactly what it was.
Okay.
And I'm sure if Mr. Fawn was still in here, he would tell you the same thing. He knows what it is. They know what they need to write if this is gonna be included. But if you don't have this, what happens if that buyer doesn't have the funds to do it? Then the appraisal gap is worthless. It's them just betting that the appraisal will be okay,
Right.
and they're not gonna pay it.
Right.
But that's something I can guarantee you is not on the little blurb if you write it into the contract. All right, so what do you do when you get the appraisal back? If the appraised value plus the buyer's appraisal gap payment is greater or than or equal to the purchase price, the buyer shall pay such required portion of the buyer's appraisal gap payment. So what that means is if it appraises for 200,000, purchase price is 250,000, it appraises for 200, the appraisal gap payment is 50,000, you're good to go. Because the appraisal gap covered the difference. If it is less than that, then you're renegotiating. You're back to what happens during a normal appraisal renegotiation period. The
Yes.
appraisal gap does not cover that difference. You have to renegotiate what's gonna happen.
We have to have this already as a.
If you're going to do an appraisal gap, it's a part of the purchase contract. Yes, it has to be part of the initial purchase contract. Not once the appraisal is already done.
So the verbiage is where they're renegotiating if the appraisal gap doesn't cover it.
Yeah, you go back into, you put in here the number of calendar days that you'll have to renegotiate that. Just like you do like on a normal appraisal, like if it comes back,
It's on.
yeah, sorry, it goes down, sorry.
Okay.
Goes down onto the next page. It's 2 pages on the addendum, it's 2 pages. So it's just like on a normal appraisal, if it comes back low, you have to go and renegotiate, you've got a time period to do that.
Because isn't that a good time then where you can ask the seller to make a contribution, correct? I mean, that could be.
Yeah, I mean, if the buyer's already agreed to pay an appraisal gap, then the seller might be willing to come down to where the appraisal gap will meet now.
So if we get to that point, as that as an example, what form are we using at that point?
You're gonna do a price change, you're gonna adjust the sale price to be whatever they agree upon to match
So
up
we're
to the appraisal
basically gonna
gap.
go back to the purchase contract and just.
And right,
adjust
the first
price.
one we went through an
Yeah.
addendum to change the sale price.
You're gonna use a normal amendment.
Yeah.
Okay. And change the price.
Little confusing, but makes sense.
Yeah.
Ever get agents angry that you're sending these, they're like, oh, I priced it right, like. Talking about like the price and versus the appraisal, like sometimes you just have high numbers. But I feel like
In this
some of
market, I mean, if anybody's offended, they're not being realistic. I mean, I have a property that we dropped it $50,000 and we may be coming down close to that again. You just don't know.
Or exempts, I know.
Yes, it's a unique
It's just-
property.
it's a-
Yeah, did I price it wrong? No, I can justify the original price.
But
Nobody was willing to pay it.
that's it, because the bottom line is in real estate, a property is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anything else.
But luckily, my seller trusts me.
Yeah,
And that was a fast expert lead. Some reason she actually trusts me and she's
Yeah.
listening to me, so.
yeah.
But it's a tough conversation to have, but I've been upfront with her from day one and she's listening, so. All right, so miscellaneous provisions on here, if there basically says if there's any conflict, the appraisal gap addendum will override what's in the contract. And that everything needs to be in writing and time is of the essence. It says that several times. If there's nothing else you take away from this class, do not ever, ever, ever ignore a deadline. That is the #1 way to make another agent mad, to make your client mad, to just give yourself a very bad reputation. Deadlines or time is of the essence in every contract that we write. If you can't keep track of it, you may need a transaction coordinator to help. And that's not being mean, I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm on the team I'm on, because that came as part of my team agreement, is I have a transaction coordinator. Keep on your deadlines, you just have to, if there's a reason you can't meet a deadline, you gotta be straightforward and honest with the other side that something's happening.
What if
telling
you get
them,
a text and they say, I'm at a family party right now and I'm not gonna get this back to you in time, and they're the ones that chose the time. I literally got that over the weekend.
you choose how you're gonna react.
And you, well,
And that's, I know it sucks to say that, but it's,
You know what?
it's very
I'm just gonna give some
frustrating.
advice to people, so that was literally what happened, okay? And this is what I did, I didn't respond at all. Basically, I'm not going to, like, that's such a low level of professionalism that you just don't respond and you let them decide what they wanna do, right? Because if you.
I would
respond-
override that and say that you need to let your client know what's going on.
Not the
It's their
client.
decision.
No,
It's
not
your
the
client's
client.
decision what they would like to do.
Oh,
If they're willing to
really?
extend a deadline or not, it's up to your client, not up to you.
Right, well, I.
And that's
said
not,
to
it's just, that's the manager
No.
of me saying it's
No, I love that.
as irritated as I would be by her response that, hey,
Right.
I'm not gonna get back to you. My call would be, hey, this agent is at an event. They're not gonna get back to us when they said they were going to. Here's our choice. We can just let
Well,
it
that's what I
ride,
did.
or we can extend it until tomorrow morning when they might be able to actually get back to us.
What I did was, I did both, so it came through. And then I let my client know right away that that was a response, actually copied her on it. And then I said, let's wait an hour. We waited an hour because I thought maybe if I don't respond, that will be, that's telling them that my expectation is still professional.
Yeah,
And you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
she did actually, she was 7 minutes late, so the contract still expired, I kid you not. But she did do her due diligence and worked it, but it was still after. But then my client obviously decided, we're gonna still work with them.
and then actually, I see what you mean. Yeah, because that is actually good. I like that advice in that way. Is sometimes not giving an answer is all the
Yes,
answer they need.
That, exactly,
Yeah.
that's all I was trying
Yeah,
to say.
totally, and that, yes, but you
You're
let it be your
right.
client's decision. Yeah, sorry.
Exactly.
There's just the manager me saying like, don't ever make a decision for your client, because the
Right.
one time you do, they will be like, why did you do that? You
No,
cost me my house.
It's
Or-
great
yeah,
advice because we get in a, you can get in a rut where you start to do that and you really can't do it.
yeah, you think you know your client until
You have. to
until
keep
they make a
checking
decision
with
that totally
yourself.
shocks you, and you'll be like, I can't believe a seller that accepts a ridiculously low offer or ridiculously low contingency or weird contingency you don't think they would accept, but they decide it's okay with them.
I know.
But it's in the end, it's their decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so any other questions on that? So not one we use a whole ton, but if you're gonna use it, please understand it. And the biggest part is if you're getting one, make sure you have written verification they can actually afford to do it.
Okay.
Because that'll probably be the number one thing. Anything else kind of makes sense, but that written verification is can't tell you the number of ones I've gotten that never had a written verification on it.
Oh,
And I can actually say before I
Wow.
saw this addendum, I've sent it without it too. So I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not either. I've written it on a contract before, but you know what? The other side accepted it.
well, yeah.
So is it my fault or theirs? Like, in the end, they accepted it, so really not my fault, but I did not do the best job I could of representing my client, so. Live and learn. Alright, so this is probably one of my favorite ones, probably one of the least used addendums that we see. Because this one is probably the only one that's not done, well, not the only one, but one that is not done when you write a purchase contract. Unless you're writing it on a pending property. The backup contract addendum. Number one thing. On the bottom. It has to be a fully signed purchase contract. This is an addendum to a fully executed purchase contract. What that means is in order for there to be a backup contract addendum. They have to agree to the purchase contract.
So it's an addition too.
Yes,
That's.
it's
what
an
it is.
addendum. It doesn't sit by itself.
Okay, got it.
I know, it's surprising like how many people don't understand that, and it's.
I've
Because, and
only
sellers
done
sometimes feel really weird about signing a purchase contract, but that's why you write in number 8, this is a backup contract. That on number 8 on the purchase contract, this is a backup contract. Because then because you have to negotiate the terms of that purchase contract to have the backup contract. Because most likely the seller's gonna want that backup contract to match just their contract they currently are under contract with as closely as possible. Because they don't want to go into a backup contract that's a step back from the one they currently have. So as a seller's agent, I would, if I'm gonna accept a backup offer, I'm gonna counter the purchase contract with this backup contract addendum so that I get it as close to the terms I can. With the purchase contract, with the current one I have. So why wouldn't we have 2 or 3 backup contracts? We get 10 offers. There's gotta be 1 or 2 that are close to the offer we
And
accept.
people don't do it.
They don't.
And I don't
Cause who
know.
wants to get back on the market? How much of a pain in the butt is that? When most people out there say, hey, and I'll show you what to do, but call the other person, and say, guess what? We're now under contract with you. I'm giving you notification. The first contract terminated, we're now under contract with you.
With that point, can I ask this question? Cause it's sort of, so when you go under contract and you're pending, do we have 24 hours before we have to post it as pending? Just if we want to wait like 24 hours to see if another offer comes in?
If you are under contract, you have no right to accept another offer.
No, I mean, if you're under contract, like how, oh, you're saying, what's the point? Because if you're under contract, there's no point in accepting another offer, not even as a backup offer.
Well, it doesn't matter if you're pending.
Uh,
If you're gonna accept a backup offer pending
well,
or
in
not,
case it falls through,
in the first 24 hours.
I guess I'm not explaining.
I'm being devil's advocate here.
No, it's
There's,
no.
I don't see any
I'm-
reason to postpone marking something pending.
There's no point in postponing marking something pending, is what you're saying.
I don't see any reason to.
Okay.
Unless I
Because
could,
that's my.
unless I could somehow legally not mark it pending until after inspection, which you can't do. That's the only way I could see any reason to do it.
Okay, got it.
That's,
That was-
I'm not being
No,
sarcastic,
that
but
was
that
my
is,
question, so that you don't see any.
I don't see any reason to delay it and push somehow getting in trouble. I don't know what the rule is on how
Right.
quickly you have to do
I think
it.
it's 24.
Yeah, but I would say, I mean, time as soon as possible is
Okay.
my understanding, and that's what I do is
Okay,
I have access to MLS, I update it as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I wanna know basically if somebody's gonna back up offer that we can break it or you accept or you could.
No, you can't accept the backup offer after you're already under contract.
So I'm saying before we even make a decision, like choice to, is it like a way to accept the contract and accept? I don't, like, how?
Oh,
Yeah, okay,
good question.
yeah, that's a good question. So say, like I've got 3 offers that are very close to each other.
Yeah.
We're not doing like going back and forth and negotiating. We're gonna accept this offer. Then I'm gonna counter off the second highest offer. And I'm okay with the terms and everything. We're gonna just leave it as is. We're gonna counter that offer with a backup addendum. And give them position number 1 as a backup offer.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna counter the second offer. You know what? They're a little low, so we're gonna counter the purchase price and with the backup addendum as backup offer number 2. So then we've got an accepted offer, backup offer number 1 and backup offer number 2, if they all accept it.
But then only before you accept.
No, that's, I'm gonna make sure I get the first offer accepted first,
Okay,
because you
okay.
can't be a backup offer if you don't have it accepted, because if that first one doesn't. But typically you're gonna, I mean, unless you're countering. If you're just accepting the offer as you've got it sitting there, once you sign it, it's accepted. You just have to send it back. Yes, I would send that one first, because then once you send it, then it's accepted, you send it back to the person, and then move through the other 2.
Got it.
And
So
hope
it's a
that they accept it.
simultaneous move, you're just making sure the first one's accepted.
Yeah, you just gotta have an accepted offer in order to do it, so.
So
But just keep in mind that the seller does have to sign the full purchase contract for the backup addendums as well, the backup contracts as well, so.
So it's the seller that's requesting this form, like as.
But a buyer can also, the buyer can too. So you say, on the other side, that was the seller side.
Yeah,
So on the
that makes
buyer side,
sense.
you go after a property, you find out, sorry, your offer was really close, you're the next best offer, but we accept another offer. Can we submit a backup offer instead? That would be great. Then okay, you resubmit your offer with the backup addendum. Here's our backup offer. Please have the seller sign it and get back to us as soon as possible.
And the buyer might even at that point ask you, how do they get close to it or something, and they
Yeah.
might change their.
And see if there's
that's what you're
anything,
saying,
if there's
they might
updates
change
you can
their-
do to be considered for backup, whatever it is. And then you resubmit it as a backup offer.
Got it.
The perspectives of who it was doing what was throwing me off a little.
Yeah,
Now I
yeah.
got it.
So either side can use this addendum. It just depends on which way you're doing.
And even if it's a buyer, they're still submitting someone, they're still submitting a normal contract, a purchase contract.
With
the
the addendum.
backup addendum,
Yes.
just to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Either way.
I know. This is the one that like people are like, well, you gotta have all like, yes, because what otherwise it's an addendum to what?
This is that- Well, that's just it. You need to actually. I'm gonna
It's
write
not
on the top-
standalone, it's an
I'm gonna write
addendum.
on the top of the page, addendum to what?
Yes.
That's really good, that's a good one.
All right, so now we'll go through what's on here. So as usual, you have to put in information at the top. One is gonna be the contract date and the property address. So what this means, backup offer means, the backup contract shall become a binding contract between the buyer and seller that is contingent upon the seller failing to sell the real estate. So once that fails to sell the first time, then the previously entered into contract goes away, and this one will become the new contract. Pretty cool. I know that's paraphrasing that whole paragraph, but I'm not gonna read it word for word. You guys are capable of reading. The number sign there is which backup contract is it? Is it in the first position, second position, third position? So that's, you put a number in there, however many you have. So number 1 would come into play first, number 2, then number 3, however far down you go. So the the seller will notify the buyer in writing by signing the initial contract termination notice, which we'll get to. It's the next part of the slides, and sending that to the buyer. So what that's telling you, it's notifying the buyer that the initial contract, the first offer they accepted, has terminated, and now their offer is being accepted. So there is an official notification that has to be sent. And it does say, in the second highlighted part, prior to them receiving that notification, the buyer does have a right to terminate the backup contract. So if they decide for some reason they don't want to move forward with it, they can rescind that offer. So if they're out looking and they find another property they like, they're welcome to take that backup offer back.
They don't even have to have a reason, right? It's
No.
not like giving out a normal.
No, it's like, no, because it's not an accepted contract.
Exactly.
So
So they can pull out.
Yeah.
So people, because I think a lot of people think that they have to, and it's like, you don't have anything to lose, submit this and keep shopping, right?
mhm. Yep, and it says it right on here.
It says it right there.
So this is this is the initial contract termination notice. This is what the seller would send to the buyer saying, hey, time to move forward, we're good. So this says, this is how the seller tells the buyer that. Bottom section is how the buyer tells the seller that they're terminating the contract, that they're not moving forward. Pretty straightforward. But notice on the top, only the seller has to sign. So, and on the bottom, only the buyer has to sign.
It's one.
Yes, something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
All right, any questions on that? I think we answered most of them at the beginning there, but any other come up? It's pretty straightforward. I don't know why we don't do more backup contracts in this business. I really don't.
Yeah, no, it's a mystery.
But I honestly think we need to initiate them more from the listing side, because I think from the buy side, it's just harder to initiate. But if the listing agent says, hey, we've got 3 similar contracts, seller, what, do you want to go back on the market if something happens with number 1? Nothing else, listing agents, it's a hell of a negotiation point.
Right.
We've got 2 backup contracts of offer number 1, initial offer,
Absolutely.
you work with us, and we're going with our backup
It's
offer.
leverage, you know, it's.
That's your leverage, right? Yeah, leverage right there.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to have leverage on. So, keep that in mind. All right, one of our favorite ones. And don't say we're not gonna use them, because see those properties that are sitting on the market that are overpriced and all that? They're gonna start accepting these, believe it or not. Sales contingencies will come back into play the more the market starts shifting back to a buyer's market. No one ever believes me, but I'd share a story, but it's in play right now, so I can't.
Oh,
If it goes through, I'll share it next time I teach this. All right. So if we're doing a sales contingency, we all know the basic idea. Sales contingency means the buyer can't buy until they sell a property. So that's the basic idea, but there's several ways that can happen. First thing that we have to decide on the contingency period is going to be, what house is the buyer selling? And how quickly are they going to get it listed? And I always tell people, when you're talking to seller or buyers about this, in here is built in, says 7 days. So that's kind of like, I get that idea in their head, like, is your house ready? If we're gonna even consider a sales contingency, are you gonna be ready in 7 days? And if you've seen their house, you probably know the answer to it. They don't have to do 7 days, but that is that's the expectation set because it's already built into it. Yes,
If I have a listing right now, just went pending, and she needs to, and I've not done one of these before. So it's pending, but she can't buy, and now I have to find her a condo, but she can't buy it until it closes.
then
So-
that's not pending the sale, that's pending the closing.
Yeah, so is there, and is this used for that too, or not really?
Not really,
Okay,
because you'd actually have eliminated that contingency once it actually goes under contract.
okay,
But I would make sure at least, I don't know if there's a contingent on closing addendum.
Right.
I would have, that's something I'd have to look at, but I would use
That's
these,
my
just the
question.
addendum on there. I would make sure the other side knows that she can't close unless that closes.
right,
You need to let them know that because
yeah,
your sale is contingent on the other one selling.
correct.
So
So
I would let them
somehow-
know that and I would make sure they had the details on it. We're through inspections, we're waiting on appraisal, we're clear to I would make sure they know whatever stage you're at when you submit that offer.
But
And
the
that would
good
be
news
something, I make
is-
sure your client's okay with it, but have a letter from the lender or whoever's involved with that sale to let them know what the current status of it is.
Okay, so the lender can take care of that mostly if I give them all the information.
If that, everybody involved is willing to do that, that's what I would do.
Okay,
Is just make sure give as much information as you can to keep them comfortable.
so the good news is that if it goes pending right away, like in this case, then you're over a hurdle.
Yeah, You're over a big hurdle
over the
already.
hurdle. Okay, got it. Thank you.
but also make sure she has somewhere to live in case you don't find her
Yeah,
anywhere.
that was another.
It's always a fun one with those.
Yes.
Alright. So, this tells us that's what we need to do, we need to make sure that they get it listed, right away. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here.
My fault.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different addendum here. So it does not say that it has to be listed within 7 days, it says it, should be under contract within 7 days. So, if you're not doing 7 days, make sure you write in there how many days to get under contract. I apologize for that, so please update your notes on there, cause I said that wrong.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, sorry, that's too many dates sometimes and my, lose my train of thought there. So, but obviously they're looking for quick timelines here, so you're not gonna put 30 days in there. And also make sure you understand that if you're on the listing side of that as well, that you need to be pricing accordingly.
Mhm.
That you need to make sure that you are pricing in a way that it is gonna sell quickly.
Price to sell.
Yes.
So that's a good.
All right, so on or before the last day of the contingency period above, and that's just calculated just like we do anything else on our contract, starts day after acceptance. Normal way to calculate that. The buyer will notify the seller in writing whether or not they have entered into a written agreement. And look at this too, because I've heard this so many times where we're having these domino effect sales. Says it's written into a written agreement which is not contingent upon the sale of the buyer's real estate as such buyer's own real estate. Basically, they're saying you're not supposed to have contingent sales that are contingent on other sales. So you have a buyer buying one house is contingent on them selling their house, but the person that's buying that house is contingent on them selling their.
That's a nightmare.
You
Everybody loses.
avoid that if you possibly can,
Right.
it actually says in here, you're not supposed to do this.
Would make sense.
And it does say on here, if you do not provide that notice, it does automatically terminate. So keep that in mind, so like we talked about before, deadlines. Know what this deadline is, if you've had a ton of activity but just don't have a contract yet, keep in touch with that other agent. Let them know what's going on, don't just pretend like put your head in the sand and pretend like nothing's happening. If you're 2 days out and you don't have an offer yet, let the agent know the status. We've had 12 showings, we have a lot of interest, I'm told I'm getting an offer, I haven't seen it yet, I know we only have 2 days left. This is what we're doing right now. Let them know, if it's a day of, or we're supposed to let them know whether or not today we're gonna be able to move forward. Is there any chance a seller's gonna let us extend if we don't negotiate this contract today? Can you talk to your seller and see if we can extend this period out for another week, whatever it may be? Don't wait until it's already expired and terminated before you try to negotiate that. And don't let them don't be not be in communication before that and let them know you don't have an offer yet. You know what I mean? Don't let dates come and expire before you tell them that you're not gonna be able to meet it. To put yourself on the other side. You'd rather know that there's a possible issue that you can let your seller know, hey, this is where we're at, so they can at least start processing it rather than them being on a timeline to process it. No one likes to make decisions in the spur of the moment. We like to have time to think about it and process our decisions, right? So keep that in mind, okay? All right, so this is what the seller gets to do. This used to be two different addendums. It used to be a. Yeah, am I missing another one? Oh no, I already changed it on here. Like, what am I missing? Another one? Used to be two different addendums. We had a with notice and a without notice addendum. Now it's all on one. So there's two different ways that a seller can take care of a sales contingency. And the buyer will tell the seller what they want them to do, but you can guess which one the seller wants to do. So the first way is that the buyer will get written notice from the seller. And they'll have so many hours to respond whether or not they're willing to remove the sales contingency. So if the seller gets another offer, so they have a contingent sale, and the seller receives another offer that they would like to consider, they have to go back to the buyer and say, hey, we have another offer. You have 48 hours to tell me whether or not you're willing to move forward with the sale without the sales contingency. That's called a with notice contingency. And in that contingency, the property would be marked pending. So the property the buyer wants to buy is pending, and the seller has to give them notice if they happen to receive another offer. The other one would be the written notice is not required. The house would stay active. And the seller would have a right to accept another offer without formally notifying the buyer that they received an offer. But which one is the seller gonna prefer?
Or is that?
The second one.
They're gonna wanna stay active and they're gonna want to still shop other offers.
So this is all the things.
Yes, this is a sales contingency, yep. A lot of people did, is why it came up. It was one I actually caught as a manager at my when I was a manager of an office, because we had so many. When I had to review contracts, there's so many of these that were just so sloppily done that I'm like, we've got to teach this. So I converted it to a more formal class, but I would teach a 2 or 3 of these in a sales meeting or something like that. So, all right, does it sound fun so far? So you know which one we're gonna go for and which one you're probably gonna get a counter on. Because seller's gonna want to do without notice. And just so you know, a lot of times when you have the one without notice, the seller will usually let the buyer know that they've got an offer and say, can you do it or not? Most sellers will. Depends on how good that other offer is. Does that make sense in that way? If they got the offer that is contingent is a really good offer and the other one they've received is kind of cruddy, they're gonna want the other one to still move forward with them. So seller may still notify the buyer. Doesn't say it just says it's not required, not that the seller can't notify them. Just depends on the seller. All right, so what do they do? So once the buyer does receive an offer on the property, they will do the buyer's notice. The buyer's notice will, sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Oh, sorry. I'm looking too far ahead. Performance and contingency dates. So once the buyer gives notice that they went under contract, that's when all the dates for the contract will start. Just like a contract acceptance date. So things like earnest money, inspection periods, that kind of thing. So they don't have to do all of that prior to selling their real estate. Miscellaneous provisions, anything that's in here, the terms of the addendum shall control if it goes against anything in the contract. You'll see this in a lot of the addendums. It will override what's in there. Kind of the big part on this one is the waiver of the contingency. So when they come back, when the seller comes back to the buyer and says, hey, we have another offer, the buyer needs to waive the contingency in some way if they want to move forward. Which they can waive it by putting their property under contract. Or they can waive it by getting a pre-approval that shows that they're able to move forward without selling their property. Some buyers can do it, they just choose not to. So there is a difference between a buyer not being able to buy without selling and not wanting to buy without selling. In this market, would you do a sales contingency if you didn't have to? Probably not, but some buyers will insist that they have to. So you can waive it if you can get a pre-approval that does state you are able to buy without it. Any questions? They're all gonna write sales contingencies this week? Did you get them accepted? Just go look at those properties that have been sitting forever and you might be surprised. I would say if anybody's looking to do a sales contingency with a buyer, I would look at anything that's been sitting for a long time. They're out there. There's properties that have been sitting out there for
No, 45
plus
It's
days.
just the light bulb just went off because we've been sitting in meetings all day. You're basically what you're saying is if you're searching for a place for a buyer. And you know that your buyer has to have a sales contingency. You're saying go search for properties that have been on the market or have had price reductions. Because those are the ones that are gonna more likely accept a sales contingency.
They're more likely to want to negotiate.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, so the.
I would say any buyer that's gonna want a contingency that's not good with the seller, that's gonna be something that's not detrimental to the seller, but it's gonna be the seller giving in. You gotta look at a property that's not selling.
Exactly. What
The
about-
seller's not gonna be willing to negotiate if they got 12 offers on the table. Unless your
Or
buyer's
they
really
think
willing
they're
to be
going
crazy.
get,
Yeah,
they think they're going to get, which is.
yeah. But
So-
I mean, look at the area. I would say my advice would be look at the area that your buyer's searching at. So I can just say off the top, Corning Township, average sales is about 12 days, give or take. So I'm gonna look at anything 14 days plus.
Right.
What's in their price range? What are we looking at? If they're willing to match near a list price, even though we know it probably is a little bit over listed, not gonna out for an appraisal gap because my buyer probably can't afford that if they're doing a
Right.
sales contingency.
Right.
But if we can get them to offer near list price on a property that's been sitting 2 weeks plus. With the sales contingency, we've got a chance,
Mhm.
depending
even
on
if
the
it's a
agents
little-
on the other side,
Or even
understanding
if
on
it's
how
a
it
little
works.
Less than, because if it's been sitting without a price reduction.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I'm just like saying, like,
Mhm.
they've gone through 1 or 2, especially 2 weekends without a sale.
Mhm.
Because I know what the sales, I mean, but other areas that maybe if they sat 1 weekend, depending on what your
Right.
average days on the market is.
What's your professional thought on the same thing you just said with FISBOs? What's your experience or your professional?
Oh, I write a sales
advice?
contingency all day with FISBOs. They don't know what they are.
Uh-huh, That's what
FISBOs are so much fun.
yeah.
Oh, I love FISBOs.
Okay, so just go after the FISBOs
Yeah.
too.
FISBOs will let you move into their garage ahead of time, put all
Uh-huh.
your crap in there. I mean, it's great.
What do you find on average with FISBOs wanting to pay any type of buyer commission?
It individual, it depends on.
It's just still all across the board.
I've had, every time I've done the FISBO, I've had the seller pay my commission. I've never had the buyer have to do it.
Okay. Okay.
And I will say that I've not had a FISBO since
Since
the
new
settlement,
rules.
yeah.
Yeah, since.
But I have sold 4 or 5 in 1 year and never had a buyer have to pay my commission.
Right. Which
So,
it shouldn't be any different if you think.
It shouldn't be,
It
but-
shouldn't be, but we don't know.
so that's my opinion is, yeah,
Yeah.
I love working with FISBOs.
Mhm.
They really think they know what they're doing and I get real kick out of it,
Yeah.
so.
I would love to sit down and talk to you about that.
Why?
Let me know.
Yeah.
Go grab coffee one day.
I would.
All right, so now we'll get into kind of the sad stuff, but the thing that you're gonna wanna make sure you protect your buyer on every time. And this is another one I will say is done, and even my agents I know really well that have been in the business as long or longer than I
Yeah.
have no idea how to use these 2 things.
That's true.
Notice of termination of contract. If you are terminating a contract due to a contingency in the contract. Before you get into earnest money and all that kind of stuff, you need to tell the other side, we're ending this contract because of this reason. This is the form you use. The things you want to notice on here. Fill out all the information that you're supposed to. But what does that highlighted part there say? This form is used to terminate or to facilitate notification that a party to purchase a contract is exercising their right to terminate the contract pursuant to a specific contingency that is provided within the frame of or within the terms of the contract. So this is one party telling the other party, hey, we're done. Second part of that, terminating party, so the party that is writing it goes on the top, whether they're the buyer or seller. They are notified, or that's who it's from. It's going to the non-terminating party, which is obviously whoever is the terminating party. Skipping the whole top section, or the middle section, we'll do that on the next slide. The bottom, what I want you to notice, it only requires the signature of the terminating party.
That's just a notice. It's not a.
Just a
provision.
notice, yes. And it can be from the buyer or seller, so this isn't a one-sided thing. That was an argument we used to always get is this isn't, you can't do this because the other side didn't sign it. It doesn't matter. If it is a contingency in the contract, only one party has to notify the other that they're terminating. That means the contract has ended. This has nothing to do with earnest money, so don't bring that in here. That's a whole nother document. This is just saying, hey, seller, we're terminating the contract. Hey, buyer, we're terminating the contract, and this is the contingency we're calling out. Now we'll go into what those contingencies are, because that's probably the number 2 most misunderstood part of it. All right, so on top, check if it's buyer or seller. And if you look down the thing. Every one of them tells you in the parentheses which party has a right to terminate because of that. So a seller can terminate because of earnest money, or the financing contingency wasn't met. Buyer can terminate because of appraisal, not getting HOA docs. Real estate inspections, be careful on that one. Property insurance availability. Be careful because those terms have changed too. Make sure you're dating contract. That was a big update when they combined contracts, so make sure you looked at that. Maintenance, if something has happened to the property since you've been under contract, you can't cite maintenance as an issue.
Which one is that under? Maintenance?
Maintenance is
Oh,
under
it's
contract, so
separate
like
from
if like a
down the
tree
bottom,
fell on the
right.
house,
I got
that
it.
type of thing. If
Yeah,
they've not
exactly.
maintained it in its current condition,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So the one on the bottom here, other contingency, this is not a free for all. This isn't where you get to write in that seller's a jerk and we don't want to move forward. And there has to be a contingency to the contract already. So you can't add a contingency here. It had to be something that was already added onto the contract. So if you had written something, an addendum to the contract already, and that was the addendum that was agreed to, but that was why you're walking away. Does that make sense? You
Something that
can't
was on
add something
the-
else in here. You can't add a new contingency in or another reason to walk away. It says, oh, this form is only used for a contingency that's already part of the contract.
So it's something that was already written in as a initial contingency.
Yes,
Got it.
so whatever that, I mean,
Mhm.
whatever contingency you can think that it could have been added onto it.
I'm trying to think of a good one that we could put as an example.
Yeah, I'm kind of racking my brain here too, like
What the heck? Come on, let's come up with something.
sales contingency. They didn't meet the sales contingency.
That's the one we just went over.
That's why I was just flipping, I was, which one? We just did a
Yeah.
contingency. They failed to do that, I mean.
That's a good one.
There is a contingency, like a contingent on release from another contract. So if they're waiting for release
Okay.
from a previously accepted contract,
Right.
that could be one that, if they never got it and they're still obligated to move forward, but that's, you don't see that as often, but. Yeah, that's why, just make sure we pointed that out because it was really, really, really annoying when that happens. And it does point that out again on the bottom that this form is to be used for notification purposes only signatures of parties submitting notice are required, so. I know it's really annoying when you're on the side that's getting this notification that they're terminating, and I know when we get this, we're all like, rah, 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 this sucks, these people, this is annoying. Then all you want, calm down, call your client, like, I know we get mad, and that's like, so funny, I've had to explain that to my manager, like, look, dude, I this is my process, I get really mad and frustrated. Then I sit down and process, and then I'm professional, I was like, but I have to get that, I'm German and Scottish, like, come on, like, this is natural.
That is in your DNA.
I'm like, so just deal with it. He's like, you send an email and it's like so professional after you just vented to me for 20 minutes. I'm like, because I got it out. Like, I'm good now. He's like, who do you vent to? I'm like, whoever will listen, it's just not my client. Like, ask Jamar, he got me one night, like, oh my God, that was a bad night. I had three really difficult contracts in 1 week.
Yeah, I just went through that myself, my poor husband.
Yeah, poor Jamar was stuck there one night with me. If you guys know Jamar Daniels, hilarious, but he does have a serious side when he needs to. He's very good to talk to if you have an issue. All right, so my second favorite form, yes.
She signed me up for something you haven't done yet.
I have not, but you know
I
what?
can give you the
I could
name.
probably throw together an hour-long class on FISBOs.
There is a young girl within Keller Williams, now she's out of state, but she's like the FISBO expert. And you can follow her on YouTube and,
Yeah, I can't think of who that is. I wouldn't say I'm a FISBO expert. I just have some good stories and some good advice, but.
I think it is Emily. Yeah, let me see if I think.
Yeah, I'll let me put some thought into if I think I can put it in
Yeah,
something,
here
not
it is.
formal, but just something to sit down and talk about.
Write her name down. Emily, it's Emily Peckham's.
Peckham's, yeah.
Yeah,
Think wasn't she on the MREA
Yes.
podcast at one point?
yes,
I've been trying to catch up with them.
she was.
Do you know I'm a newbie to Keller still? I've only been here, it'll be a year in July.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, July 1 will be a year.
Do you mind me asking where you came from?
Sipsy Klein,
Okay, that I started
13
there-
years at Sipsy Klein.
I was there too, and then came here. Yeah, so just, you'll have fun with her. Yeah, just.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a FISBO queen by any means. I just had 1 year where it just kept falling together, and it was when everybody thought they could sell their own house. But it was like 2021, I think. It's probably the year I have to look back at records.
Not though,
Yeah.
people think they can do it now.
Oh, yeah. And this is the
Yeah.
ones where they're selling undervalued now too, or they're overpriced, a couple of them are too, so. They sit around for a while, so I've only listed one FISBO, but mine is, I'm just bringing buyers to them.
Yeah.
That's my goal, is not to list them, is to bring buyers to them.
Yeah.
So I was
Now,
trying to-
Emily's goal is a little bit separate than hers. Emily's is the listing.
Yeah,
Her idea, I think, is much better. Because there's a lot of younger realtors and things, and it's easier for people to gain buyers than listings. So it's a good place to start.
but if you're bringing buyers and they're not accepting it, you build a rapport, then it could lead to listing it too. So I mean, it
That's
really,
it.
you kind of play into
Right.
whatever they're accepting.
It's
So.
a good way to get, because what is it, 87% of them end up listing
Mhm.
with an agent.
Yeah.
So there you go, it's a win-win.
But either way, just making sure you're making money on one end or the other, so.
Were you with Sipsy Kenwood, Montgomery?
No, Ross Township, I was a manager there.
Oh my God, that's where my listing is, Ross Township.
Yeah.
It's like I've never even been out in that area.
Yeah, that's what I was,
So, I love that area though. Do you
Yeah.
live out there?
I live in Coleraine.
Okay.
Yep.
It's like a
A little history there, yeah, I was a Sipsy for 13 years, I was at Coldwell when I first got licensed for a few years, but.
Okay,
I was at Sipsy for 13 years, managed the Ross office for about 2 years.
so Peter snatched you.
I recruited Peter.
Good for you.
I knew what I wanted,
love
and
those stories.
yeah, it was fun time. I kind of shocked him. He was,
Yeah.
that's a story for another time, but it was kind of
All right,
funny. Mutual release and distribution of earnest money. So if you do terminate a contract and there's earnest money involved, there is a procedure for what you need to do to get earnest money released.
Yeah.
Number one, before you ever go under a contract, buyer or seller side, please explain to them how the heck earnest money works. We don't have control over it. We never will. It requires a court order.
Yeah, it's just.
Please be honest and upfront with them and
It's
be
all-
serious about it, because it's only one time in my life I've not gotten earnest money back from somebody. And I talk about foreclosed properties, REO properties, and you walk away for a non-legitimate reason, they ain't not giving your money back. So it's the only time I've ever not gotten earnest money back. It's taken a while, but it's the only time I've not gotten it back
Yeah,
at
but
all.
That's impressive though, because that's not common.
Well, they've agreed to give it away, but I still, the only time it's like, we've always reached an agreement. I've never walked away without an agreement being reached eventually. It's usually, if we
Well,
don't
that's
agree
okay.
initially, just my little piece of advice, if you don't agree initially, wait till they resell the property. And it gets a couple weeks in when you know they're through contracts or through inspections,
Yeah.
ask again. When the seller's in a much better mood, then they might be willing to sign it again. Real nice email. Hey, I just thought I would try again. Can you please ask the seller if they'd be willing to release the earnest money? Here's the form again. We'd really appreciate any cooperation we could get. And you'd be surprised how seller just like, fine, we're done with them. Let's walk away, and it's, yeah, my little 2 cents on there. Ask when the seller's happy
Usually they
again.
Get it.
Yeah.
So that would be the only.
Yeah, and that's always worth it,
No,
the honey
I like
thing.
that. I never thought about that.
People don't know how sarcastic I am in my emails, so. All right, so mutual release and distribution of earnest money. Actually, very simple form, so this is to release all parties from the contract. And the difference on this is it is actually the formal release. Where it's gonna it releases both the buyer and the seller release each other. The buyer releases any and all interest in the property and allows the seller to the right to resell the property. And it releases the listing and selling brokers from any liability claims or damages resulting out of or related to the purchase contract. So it is a formal release. So it is the best thing to have in hand, even if there's not earnest money, if this is a formal release. To say, hey, the contract is ended. Because the distribution of earnest money is just a section of this, it's not the whole contract. If there's not earnest money involved, which there always should be, well, I shouldn't say that. It is common practice for there to be earnest money involved, but there is not always earnest money involved. That is only part of it. The mutual release does show that both sides have decided to walk away from the contract and release everybody from liability. Most people think that this only is distribution of earnest money. It's not, it's both.
It's
It is a
better.
release
Yeah,
and a
because even
distribution.
if they agree to do that, that's not saying that they're agreeing to give.
Yeah.
The earnest money.
Yeah, but if you are releasing earnest money, you do need to make sure you write out the amount, you write out the numerical amount, write out who is holding it. Whether it's a title company, the listing agent, seller's agent's company, whatever it is, make sure you write that out. You write out who's receiving it. The buyer, the buyer's broker, the seller or the seller's broker. Very seldom does a broker ever get the earnest money, but there could be a reason why it does. Then you're gonna hopefully get that signed and agreed upon. Usually, if you had a legitimate reason to walk away, most people will say they usually get the earnest money back, usually works out. Or you agree to give it to the seller because you know you don't have a legitimate reason and your buyer says, give it to the seller so we can walk away. Whatever works. On B on here, this is what happens. You can check that box if you know you have a disagreement. I would not, a dispute, sorry. I would not check that box initially because you don't know you have a dispute until the seller comes back and says, no, give me the money. The buyer's already asked for the money. Then that's when you check that box and say, nope, we have a dispute, neither side will agree. So don't initially check it that we have a dispute, because then you're just telling the other side you're being difficult, so. Make sure you have a dispute before you do that.
Point thing.
Because the seller might come back and say, well, what if we split the earnest money? We'll keep 1,000, you guys keep 1,000, and
Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't come up.
yeah, it just,
Split it.
yeah, it could happen. Or maybe you should suggest it, hey, we
Yeah,
kind of messed up, but you
idea.
guys could have been nicer too. You
Yeah.
could have worked with us more, so how about we split the earnest money? And that might be enough of a gesture for the seller to sign off. Now your buyer's only lost half their earnest money, and next time they're putting down less earnest money. Any questions? Just remember on this one, in order for the brokerage or whoever has the earnest money to release it, both parties must sign. They can do nothing with one signature. Okay? And they both have to sign the same form. It can't be. I know that sounds silly, but it can't be one, like if there's a disagreement and it's not the same form, they can't. Well, they both signed it, but one says the seller's getting, one says the buyer's getting it, they still can't release it.
It happens.
I know that sounds silly, but I've actually had people tell
No,
me
it
that.
happens because they're mad at each other and they don't even want to use the same
Yeah.
piece of paper.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does happen.
Yeah.
I don't want to see anything with that person's name on there ever again. Notice of rescission. So this is one you don't see very often, but you probably should use more often. If someone submits an offer and it's not been accepted, and they decide to make an offer on another property, but that other offer is still in play, meaning it hasn't expired or anything. You actually need to rescind that offer. 'Cause what if you end up with two accepted offers on two different properties, unless you can buy both of them? So you should formally rescind an offer if you have an offer still in play, especially if it's one like, don't do it as much now, but like REO properties or short sales, we used to have to leave them open for like weeks at a time. If you don't want to have that property anymore, you'd have to rescind the offer to take it off out of play. So if you have an active offer still out there and you're moving on another property, you may want to formally rescind the existing offer. Keep in mind though, this is done before it's accepted. This isn't terminating an offer. This is saying, hey, we gave you that offer, but we changed our minds. We're taking our offer back. If you don't have time to do this form, you can't actually send them an email and saying, we are going to rescind it, paperwork is coming. And it actually gives you a space in here to put that information to say, hey, we already did send you that, we did send this to you, this is our formal notification. Just so like, if you're in the middle of writing an offer and you can send, as long as you've sent them something, I'm not a lawyer, I can't argue whether or not that would be upheld, but at least you've notified them that your offer is no longer in play. But on here, you're gonna put your name, the buyer's names, the person that is rescinding the offer, whoever is on the other side, and what the date of your original offer was. So this is a little bit different than a lot of things you'll write, so this one probably is a little bit more important to pay attention to. It sounds a little bit different.
So if I wanted to change the offer, I would do it, and that wouldn't be this one, but what form would I need to do? To fill out and change the offer? Like if I found out that after we showed the property, there were 5 other people looking at it and want to up our offer, some just to make it stand out better.
I would just amend the original offer. Just take the original contract, make the changes to it when you send it to them, saying this replaces the offer that we submitted on whatever date. Because the second offer is gonna be higher, I would assume,
Right.
and they're not gonna accept the lower offer, so. I would assume that would be enough. You could formally rescind the original one if you wanted to. It probably is the proper way to do it. But it would probably just confuse the hell out of the other side. Because the commonplace way is just to take the original offer and put the new price on it or new terms on it and send it back over with the updates on it.
What I've done before is I'll call or text the other agent and say, hey, we're rescinding the offer, I'm working on a new one. We're gonna revise it, and then I would put in the subject of the email, revised offer.
And in that situation, I would say that's enough. This is more like you don't want to move forward at all, is what this is saying. Hey, I know we made an offer, but we're not moving forward with it. We want to make sure before you accept it that you understand we're not moving forward. Yes.
This price and that price.
You could, or just, I mean, I've always kind of crossed out and had them initial new price or something, but it's however your standard of practice is. I mean, there's probably 100 ways to do it. I would worry that the agent might not see an addendum. That would be my concern. I'm not ever saying an agent is lazy, but when they're getting multiple offers. And there is lazy agents. So when we went through that, like I said, not everybody was licensed in 2020, 2021, but that 19 to 21 point, I mean, at one point it was actually, and I had on all my listings, everything had to be in one PDF sending it over. When you're getting 13, 15 offers on a property, I'm not pulling up multiple emails trying to find your pre-approval, your, I'm not looking for it. So if it's not all in one email, I may not even look at it.
Cause that's what Baldwin's for, right? For them to send everything like together, cause I've noticed lately, people are sending me all these separate emails with these separate.
Because they don't know how to tell to send it as one. If you're getting it from DigiSign, it's because they have the settings wrong in there. That's a Sipsy Klein thing.
Just go click, and you send it, like, now Sipsy Klein.
Sipsy Klein, you have to do 2 different things. You can send it as one PDF or a separate PDF. Some people forget to send it as one.
I tend to like do it separately so that
I do it separately. I don't like to send through .lib.
Yeah.
I download and send it separately because I want it, I like to send it that way. So it's a habit of mine.
But you put it all in one email.
Oh, all
You
one
just
email.
You just have every necessary document as a separate PDF, is what you're saying.
No, I put it all as one PDF if I can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I can
That
show you
makes
tricks for
sense.
that too. I mean, there's a way, there's a website you can go to and combine all your PDFs into one, even if they're not initially all at one.
Yeah, I would like to know.
Online to PDF.com.
Online,
Number 2, PDF.com. Yeah, completely free and secure as well. I've used it for years. Before we had all this fancy stuff, that was my way of looking fancier
Right.
than what I was.
right,
It'll also separate and rearrange pages too.
that's awesome.
So on here, it does say that, on the bottom part, it says, notice of rescission was, previously sent. So that is where you're gonna tell them, hey, we already sent this over to you, and this is, how I did it. In writing, verbally, however you send it, just saying, hey, this is my formal one, but I've already sent it to you once.
Mm.
So even though this might be dated this date, I sent it to you another way before. So any questions on any of that? And it says it again, in terms of the above dated offer, counter offer are no longer open for acceptance. So it kind of says it more than once, just to make sure people understand what they're looking at. And it's only a signature of the rescinding party that's required. So whoever's rescinding, we don't need to show acceptance of it, they just have to, the rescinding party has to sign.
So it's not like urgent that you have someone send you a receipt, like receipt or something like that.
No, not really.
Just
I mean, I would like to know they received it,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
would
just
too.
more, they don't have to sign
Yeah.
it showing receipt. I would just confirm with the agent they get it. That's probably one most of you haven't used, but it could come into play if you've been in a situation where you've got something sitting out there for a long period of time. You might wanna make sure you get that out of play. So this is one that is not technically a addendum to the contract, but I really felt like we should go over it because number one, a lot of people that are using the wrong defect notice. Because I've only seen this one sent to me a couple of times. So a lot of people are using an outdated version of this. I'm not sure if our dot loop is updated or not, but this is the most up-to-date defect notice. And we'll go through why this one's slightly different than the other ones.
So what's this one? Is there a date on this one? God, my contact's not working today.
November 1st, 2021.
Is that, oh, there it is. So
Yeah.
that's the.
2021, yep. So we'll go through this because there's a couple things I want to make sure that we point out on here. Number one, what is a defect, you guys? Is it a stain on the carpet, hole in the wall?
It's a significant thing. Like,
The way I've always
Not
explained it, go ahead.
Like foundation.
Yeah, things like serious issues. The wording I've used a lot because it seems to click with people. It's something that's gonna prevent you from using the house the way it's intended to be used. So that's kind of works for me. Foundation, like people are like, that doesn't really, but it could. Trust me, if your house falls down, you're gonna have serious issues. Or if you got nasty water in the house, it's still gonna give you serious issues. Findings falling off of here. So, all right. So in here, it's gonna tell you, and they call it material condition. So it's material meaning it matters. Material, that word means it makes it's significant, it's important, it's something that matters. And if you read through our purchase contract, it gets into this. So make sure your buyer does understand that these days of walking away because you're not happy with the inspection. No, that's not how it works anymore. And it does require that you send over the relevant sections of the inspection report. If you're requesting repairs to be done, you send over the relevant sections. And I know even the coach at my office would argue this point for me. Don't send over the whole
Oh
inspection
my God, I
report.
was just gonna say that.
That is the biggest pet peeve of mine and it's
It's me
disrespectful.
too. You know what I do? I literally, just last night, I like put, when I'm sending the accepted offer, I literally put in bold capitals, like, the little notes. Do not send me a full inspection report.
Yeah, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy.
Well, if
Um,
you don't wanna know things that.
Yeah, that too, but it's
Yeah,
to me, it's just a slap in the face. It's rude, it's not necessary, you should not do it.
Yeah.
If anybody does everybody know how to use the print to PDF feature we all have on our computers?
yeah, like
Okay.
where you go to copy something, but you. do that instead? Is that where it is? So,
If you go into to a document and hit print, you have an option instead of sending it to a printer to print to a PDF.
oh, that's it.
When you're doing that, you can choose page numbers to print and create a new PDF of just the page numbers you want.
That's the best thing. No, that's like, I've never used it for the inspection before. I've always done it a different way, because you can do it in dot loop, but that's easier.
That is the simplest way to
It's
do
the
it. I've done it 100
simplest way.
different ways. That is your simplest way to do
About
that. But keep in mind, the pages on your inspection report may not be the actual pages of your document.
Right. you
So
just
make
have to
sure
make
you know which pages you're
Right.
printing, but that is the simplest, quickest way to print
That's a
the
great
relevant
idea.
pages that
Because
you
you
need.
have to download it to put it into, to upload it in the dot loop anyway.
Yeah, and I keep buying the dot loop too, but
Yeah.
that to me, it's just easier to do
Oh,
that way
yeah,
for me,
dot
because then I load it back into dot loop as just the
Totally.
repair pages or something like that versus the full inspection, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a little, I'm full of little tech trips, and that
Yeah,
one to
I
me is
love
one of
that.
the easiest ones to do. Does anybody have a question on that? 'Cause I can walk you through on the computer how to do that afterwards, but I think we're on a Zoom and it would look weird on the Zoom to pull it up, so. And make sure you do a concise description of the defect and the corrective measure. So what you're not gonna do is just cite what's on the inspection report. Like, so if it, sorry, I have a example here. Come on. My battery die? All right, good thing we're at the end. Whoops. Why is it not going to the next thing? That is really weird. Okay, it's not doing it. That is very strange. All right. Computer's like locked up and not letting me move at all. It's doing it on there, but it's not doing it on here. Sorry, they're doing a shared screen. I'm like, it's not only doing it on one, not on both. If I can figure this out real quick. I am not sure what just happened here. Sorry. Hmm. It says it's sharing my screen. Did my Zoom stop? No, it's okay. We got started late, so.
But this is the class I've been needing for a while.
All right, so luckily we're on the last thing because some reason it froze up. All right, so I think I can walk you through it without actually having it, at least the gist of it is up there. So when you get a inspection report, it's gonna say something like, and I can read the example I had. On this one I have it's something to do with electrical. The electrical service interest cable masthead is loose from the exterior wall. Okay, that's not what I'm putting in the inspection report because that's just stating what the damage is. It's not stating what the correction we want. So you need to make sure you're telling them what what the expectation is. Now, you're not an electrician. You may not know what needs to be done. So I'm not expecting you to know that, but it needs to be a little bit more precise. So the way I would have reported this was electrical repair. I state the date, the page number, the little numbers that are next to the repairs. So they know precisely which one I'm referring to. So even because if they have a whole inspection page, there's still usually several things noted on there. So they know exactly which repair I'm referring to.
Are we down here at the very bottom?
Yeah, but there's supposed to be an example in the middle and it's not up there. So my thing for O's, so I don't know how to get it to come back up, so I don't know. So what I would write on there is evaluate electrical service cable mast head and perform recommended repairs. Do you see the difference between just saying, hey, it's loose, to saying, no, have it evaluated and make sure it's where it needs to be?
By a certified yada yada.
That's already in there.
That's already in there?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
they've changed, yeah. That's fine.
yeah, it does say it quite, I know, it's like, does it really say it in there already? It does. So, on the bottom paragraph, it says, the first highlighted section there, it says all work to be completed in a professional workmanlike manner by a professional qualified
Yeah.
to make the agreed corrections.
Mhm.
So. And there is times, like as a seller, there is times where we have countered back and saying, hey, the seller's gonna do these repairs.
Yeah.
That is okay to do, especially when it's very simple things. So keep that in mind. If the seller is gonna do it, just make sure the other side is aware that the seller is going to do it. The next part is there is, how many days prior to closing that, would the buyer like to have the repairs done? I will slap you on the wrist if I ever see you write 1 day in there. Do not wait till the day before closing to have repairs completed. That is a nightmare waiting to happen.
What's your recommendation?
I'd say 7 days. If you've got a decent amount of closing, I want that done 7 days before closing. If the seller can't do it for some reason, you can renegotiate it. Don't give them till the day of closing to finish repairs. You're gonna, it's
Well.
one too
people-
many times, it's been a nightmare.
People are natural procrastinators, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you had one seller that actually thought that during the inspection period, they had to complete all their repairs and they managed to.
Wow, that's an extreme opposite.
God.
Love it.
It was hilarious. And once I explained it to them, they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they're like, oh my God. I had no idea why they're like, couldn't
Right.
get back to me. And like, they were just so stressed. I'm like, what is going on? And yeah, communication is key. So that was a fun little time. And keep on this also, this paragraph allows them to have buyers get 2 walkthroughs, an inspection walkthrough and a final walkthrough. So the contract gives them a final walkthrough. If they hadn't repairs done, they get a separate walkthrough to check on those repairs. So another reason I want them done well before closing. Are you cutting through the middle of my meeting? My computer froze up. It won't let me do my slides.
Oh, no.
But it's on like the last one, so we're fine. Don't worry about it. It's literally the last 3, like, I think we can manage to get through it. So the last section on here, which isn't gonna pop up, so I do apologize. So there's 4 different ways the seller can respond. The first one we all love. They can agree to complete everything. Second one, they can complete some corrections as amended or initialed. So they can change it a little bit and complete some. C, which and I wish you guys could see it up there, but I apologize, you can't. They can agree to pay the buyer's contractor at closing a certain amount to take care of some repairs, and then they have to list out which repairs these are that they are paying to have done. I don't recommend this so much unless it's something that, like, there's some things that will not be done during a period leading up to closing. Windows being a big one. You typically cannot get windows in a 4 to 6 week period. So that might be something that needs to be paid out, a check cut at closing to go towards it being done after closing. Some things cannot be done prior to closing. I would not use this one on a regular basis. And please realize that it does say they're going to pay the contractor. They can pay the buyer, but that's going to have to be with the lender's approval. So that's one, be careful on that because the lender's not going to approve it. I'm just going to tell you that outright. The lender's not going to let the seller pay the buyer money. So, and D, one we don't want to see is the seller doesn't agree to complete any. So does happen, but remember, it's still a negotiation. They can say they're not going to do any. The buyer can still decide to change their mind and maybe ask for money off instead or something like that.
I get, when is the defect notice? Is it part of the inspection process? Where does it come into play?
The
just-
first part of the inspection is when you do the inspection and give notice to the seller of the defects that are required, you're asking to be repaired. Is that first part of your inspection period?
Right, and you're
The second
saying
part is the settlement period, or the, I'm forgetting the names of it.
consideration period.
Consideration period when the seller's considering the repairs done. The
Right.
last part is the settlement period when they can still negotiate back and forth.
So this you're saying use this in the settlement period?
No, and that's in the
In
beginning.
the very beginning?
That's in the very beginning. Then during the consideration period is when the seller would respond. So the
where-
seller's response comes during the consideration period.
So post-inspection form versus this.
There's no post-inspection form.
This is the
This is- yeah.
post-inspection form. All right, that's why I'm confused. Okay, so this basically gives the post-inspection.
Yeah, I don't know what, like I said at the beginning, this is based on RAGC forms. RAGC does not have a post-inspection form.
Dang.
So I don't know if Seven Hills is using something different. That may be something for your management people to decide.
Well, sometimes you just have the wrong damn form loaded up, quite honestly.
Yeah, and that's something I can mention and see if anybody's aware that there's a difference or anything on there. But that is the one that RAGC currently does
That's why
have.
I was so confused. I'm like, okay, it's
Mhm.
different, but what, like. 'cause
Puts
I-
it all on one form, keeps it cleaner.
Exactly.
That's the
I
idea.
just to a different thing.
And it limits the amount of space you have to write repairs on there too.
Mhm.
So it gives you that visual of let's not put too much stuff on there.
Right.
So, I mean, you can always put extra pages if you need to, but that's
Mhm.
the visual they want you to have. And so I do apologize about the slides, but recap. We went through the addendum, we went through the escalation addendum, the appraisal gap, the backup contract, and these are all addendums, but I get tired of saying that. The sales contingency, the termination of contract, the mutual release and distribution of earnest money, the rescission of an offer, and a defect notice. You guys have any questions or any takeaways that you would like to share with me?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think it's a great class and it needs to be, you know, it should just be switched to mandatory, quite honestly.
It's
And I
actually
think
something that I've talked to Peter about that I want to teach our brokerage to all of our new agents.
Yeah.
We're
for
just trying to
sure.
figure out at which period that we need to teach it, because too early on, I think it's
Okay.
overwhelming. I think they need to have a couple offers under their belt first.
Right.
Maybe not contracts, but I think they need to understand a purchase contract first before we talk about addendums.
And I think a lot of these things, I mean, from my experience, I've been doing it 10 years. You're learning it on the fly by the seat of your pants when you're right in the middle of it, but this is nothing to mess around with, so
No.
it's not really how you wanna learn it.
I take another thing, when we get into the crazy market, something I've come up with recently, because a lot of times our buyers are not given a lot of time to think about making an offer.
No,
So we sit down, most of us do buyer consultations of some kind.
yeah,
Sometimes it is on the fly. But I'm gonna highly recommend, if you have the time, especially if you've missed out on one offer or didn't get a chance to write it, pull your buyer aside. Write an offer with addendums, not on a property. Walk them through that purchase contract, step by step. And any addendum that you think you would possibly use prior to actually having a house you're writing it on.
mhm,
Take that pressure off, let them know what their options are, what their questions are gonna be, and what addendums they might want to be considering as they're going through it.
mhm.
So that when you get to writing it, you're not trying to throw, do you want to do an escalation? They're like, what the hell is that?
Mhm.
Do you want to do an appraisal gap? What are you talking about? Like,
Mhm.
you're adding this layer of stress. That thing's 14 pages. That's why like the new title is when 14 pages aren't enough. It's supposed to indicate we're already overwhelming our buyers with all of this information. If we're gonna to do right by our buyers, I think we need to show them that contract before we actually are sitting down to write it.
Yes.
I've
Oh,
done that with a couple of
contract, for
buyers
sure.
recently, and it's
Yeah.
been amazing that now they're like, hey, we thought about doing this, but I think, I really like the idea of doing an escalation because I'm willing to pay more, but I really don't know that I want to just tell them like upfront that I'm gonna pay this much.
Right,
I didn't know that I could tell them that I'd only pay that much if someone else was willing to also.
My old.
It's
Right.
amazing how they process it differently than what you and I do.
Right. No, and I used to put pictures, even if it was multiple pages, in my buyer, presentation. I would put pictures of the forms, like what they look like, but then they started changing so frequently. I was
Got
like, oh,
hard, yeah.
crap. You
I
know?
just be like, hey, you know what? We did a buyer's consultation. We've looked at a couple places. We haven't been able to make an offer. While we're still looking, why don't we take another hour
Right,
and let's sit down and we're gonna pretend like we're writing an offer so that I can kind of walk you through the contracts. And when we're ready to do it, you guys can start thinking about all the stuff that you want to do.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to have as much pressure and we can more enjoy the process of actually making that offer when we do find that right house for you. It might be a lot less stressful. Then you can make that phone call and do it over the phone if you need to or something like that without feeling like you're letting them down as much.
Wants to feel like they're in control and they don't have a sense of being in control if they don't have knowledge, because knowledge is power, right?
Mhm.
So,
That's what I want to fill them up with, especially, those clients that want to know.
yeah,
There's some that don't care, that they're like,
Right.
just write it, it's
They want
fine,
to
it's
do
great.
everything,
And there's
they
other
don't
ones that are
care.
like, they want to analyze every paragraph, and those
Yeah.
are the ones that I'm giving them everything I've got. I'm like, here you go. We're gonna go through it. You keep it all. If you call me when you have time to go through this and you have questions about any one of those paragraphs, I'll walk you through what it means. And luckily, I used to teach purchase contracts, so I can really do that. The new one throws me off a little bit because I haven't gone into as much detail on that, but they may catch me on the hot tub or something like that, but that might be about it, so.
Okay, I know it, I already asked a question about this.
No,
It was
keep
im-
asking.
It was important to me,
Yeah.
was the escalation,
Escalation clause, yeah.
I did one or two of them, and I'm like, oh man, I did it wrong, just thinking about it. Because of the first part, like, don't just put the purchase price in, you're gonna have to deduct the other things. And I didn't know that, so.
Yeah,
I
because that
really
is your
appreciate
true
that.
offer is the net offer, not just the gross offer, yeah.
Yeah, I did it wrong, but thank you.
But hey, they accepted it in the end, right?
Right.
They all paid it and they walked away happy, so.
But I appreciate you.
No
going over
problem.
that.
Yep, thank you for being here, so. So we actually did do it in under 2 hours, so
Well,
that's good.
important.
And more big people, a bigger group, I think we'd have more questions though too, so. But I appreciate you guys sticking out. I know it's a long class, but I think it's any shorter time, we would not get into as much
No,
detail as we needed to.
when you take a class and it's only an hour and it ends up being 50 minutes because they're late, there's always technology glitches or whatever.
Yeah,
And you just feel like you've wasted your time because like you just, do you guys agree? You didn't absorb, it was just thrown out and you couldn't ask questions and you walk away with nothing,
yeah.
basically.
And that's why I try not, everything I try to do, I try to keep it 10 minutes short of my scheduled time so that I can answer
Yeah.
questions. And here they actually started me late and I still only went 10 minutes over.
Right.
So it's like 20 minutes
Right.
late, starting 10 minutes over is actually decent
If
timing. for me.
Everything in real estate needs to be 2 hours minimum or a workshop.
Yeah.
Or physically doing something, so when they leave, they feel like they're leaving an hour.
Yes.
And not leaving with all these questions and they're overwhelmed, and because that's when people don't move forward with what they just learned, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm all hoping to give you guys is a little bit more confidence that
Yeah.
next time you either receive or write an addendum, you're like, wait a minute, I remember this.
Mhm.
And I think I've got a little bit more information than I started with.
Yeah, that's
Because
excellent.
these are not easy.
No.
Yes, I mean, seriously, do you want me to give you my card so you can get in touch with me? Yeah.
Well, you.
I'll sit
actually-
down and
she
have
has
like
it.
a conversation with you on what you wanna think about and, yeah.
I'm gonna do both.
Hey, Jennifer, your information's right here.
Is it?
Yeah, she put it right here, dear.
Yeah.
You're set.
Right on the front.
You're all set.
Yeah, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about it
Which
and,
no
I
one
might.
does that either, and that's annoying. So you just get an A++.
Does it count that I put the wrong name on the front of the packet?
When,
I forgot to
where?
change it. The packet is supposed to be, it's supposed to say, when 14 pages just aren't enough. I forgot to update the name of it.
When
When I applied for CE, I changed the name
Yeah,
because I wanted it to be, when you say addendums,
you
like.
want it to be catchy.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
I'm good
I
with
got it,
names,
yeah.
so. My ethics class was supposed to be how to stay out of realtor jail, but they told me I couldn't do that because it wasn't a real place.
So you're really good at contracts,
I was actually an engineering student for 2 years before I became a real estate agent. That was like supposed to be my initial career, so I'm really good at the details. That's my strong point, which is why I'm actually going after one of my buyers for breaking my buyer broker agreement right now too.
Yeah.
Because I keep records. I know what I did and I know I did my job and they're gonna pay me.
Well, and it's in the.
I already have the small claims court, for enough.